Hello, everybody. I am Haley from Art Matters, and we're going to do a watercolor workshop today. But I'm going to start by introducing our program, Art Matters, a little bit more. I'm going to do a screen share with you. Here we go. I'm going to go over our mission statement before we begin. The Art Matters Youth Arts Project is a group of teaching artists who bring authentic, engaging arts experiences to Albuquerque youth. Our content is designed to engage participants in art making with a focus on social justice, whole person health, community, joy, and creative engagement at the core of our process. So come in with, a willingness to want to be creative, to want to learn, to be respectful of those around you. And then I'm going to go over our land acknowledgement for our program. Art Matters is a collective of teaching artists based on Tiwa land, otherwise known as Albuquerque, New Mexico. New Mexico has been and always will be the ancestral homelands of the Navajo Nation, the 20 Pueblos, 3 Apache nations, and the Ute tribe. And then we have a couple of agreements in our program. These are good, especially if you are in a group of people. Everyone has a voice. Make space for all respectful questions, concerns, and ideas. Learn from each other. If you have people around you and you're interested in how they made something happen, go ahead and ask them. Or if you like something that someone else did, give them a compliment. Respect each other, yourself, the tools, the materials, ideas, the environment. Throw glitter, not shade. We're here to be supportive of each other, of ourselves, of our art practice. Process, engage in process, hold space for joy always, and have fun. We're here to have a good time and to experiment with art. Be an artist and a maker, take creative risks, try something new, create. Lift each other up and share. Ask questions, listen, give thoughtful, productive feedback, collaborate, move up, move up. We're all leveling up this year. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go over the materials that you're going to be using today. You need to grab a pencil. 1 per person would be good. A Sharpie is good. And then a couple of drawing tools to experiment with. I have a colored pencil and I have a marker. I have my watercolor set and I have my brush to go with it. Some sort of paper towel or something to use to soak up to clean up your brush, soak up your watercolors. And then the spray bottle that came in the kit is really good for misting your watercolors to get them ready. Or another option is to have a cup of water on hand. This is also good for cleaning off your brush in between colors if you don't like mixing them. Otherwise, you can just use this spray bottle to add a little water to the clear part. And you can also use this as like a way to clean your brush, dab it on the paper towel as you get going. So what we're going to start by doing is getting our paper ready. We're going to take a sheet of mixed media paper and we're going to fold it. So you're going to start by folding it lengthwise. And we're going to fold that in half. And then we're going to fold that in half one last time so that when we open it up, we have 8 little squares in here to work in. And what we're going to do in each of these is we're going to do a little bit of experimentation with our watercolors. So in each square, I would like you to write what we're going to experiment with so that you can go back and know like, oh, this technique or this effect was done using this process. So for our first one, we're going to do wet on wet, which is water in our watercolor and on our brush. And then for the next, we're going to do dry on dry, which is using very little water for the watercolors. And then we're going to do marker and watercolor. We're going to do pencil and watercolor. And the next one is going to be mark making. And the last three are free choice, which you can write or you can just leave it because you'll know these were my experiments. You're also welcome to go back after you've done it and write down whatever technique it was that you did so that you know what it looks like. So this is like a little reference for how watercolor works. So we're going to start with the wet on wet experiment, which is this one for me. And for wet on wet, what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and wet your palette. And I'm going to wet my brush. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to also wet my paper. And then I'm going to add this color to it. I'm going to spray it a little bit more. So you get sort of this crazy thing happening. And that's all I'm going to do for that. I'm going to dab it because it's very wet. And this is the wet on wet effect that we've gotten. And then next we're going to start here. We're going to do dry on dry. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dry off my brush. It's okay to leave a little bit of water in your palette, but choose a color and dry it up a little bit so it's not super wet. And then instead of using my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and use this paper towel because we're experimenting, right? Like, what does this look like? So this would be dry on dry. Did a little bit with my paper towel. Now I'm going to try a little bit with this. Okay. So I have, it's much different than the wet on wet. And you're welcome to use different colors if you want. I'm using single colors, but just notice like the differences in how it feels and how it looks from using water to using no water. And then we're going to go ahead, we're going to move on to marker and watercolor. And at any time, feel good to pause this video or work at your own pace in any way. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my marker on first before the watercolor. If you choose to put watercolor first, just make sure that it is dry before you work with any pens or anything because they don't really work on the water. But I'm going to lay this down. And then I'm going to go ahead. I like the sprayed water. I'm going to spray it. Ooh, the markers are washable, so they also kind of work with the water. And then I'm going to use a blue. I'm going to do some little dabs in here of blue. I'm going to do dabs of purple in the water. Maybe a little bit of black in there. Yeah. And then I'm going to dry it off. See what it looks like. Cool. And then I'm going to move on to pencil and watercolor. And I'm going to go ahead and I like to sort of shade with my pencils. I'm going to see what that looks like. Put my watercolor on top of that. Dry it off. Okay, and then the last one we have written is to do mark making. I like to do this with a paper towel. You can do it with your watercolor brush. You can use your fingers if you want, but I like to dab a little bit in here, get a couple different colors on it, And then I go and I start to make marks with my paper towel. Go in, choose different colors, make different marks. This is my effect that I got. And then with these three, these are up to you to choose whatever you want to do in these three squares. Just make sure that they are all different. Maybe experiment with Sharpie first and then putting your watercolor on top of that. Maybe experiment with mixing colors. So I've got a yellow, and then I'm going to add a red. Ooh, and I've got like a nice orange now. Then my last one, I'm going to try doing like very watered, sort of splatter painted watercolor. And if you're splatter painting, make sure that your area has something laid down on it so that it's not getting too messy. Sometimes a fun thing to do is to lay a piece of paper on top of it and see what this can give to you. Pull it. So we pulled a print from our watercolor. And then we've got this little sheet now of experiments in watercoloring. And we're going to keep this on hand as reference for our final piece. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a new sheet of paper and we're going to make a sketch on it. I have already gotten a sketch ready. This is the sketch that I'm working with. This little guy saying sup. And then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to fold this into 4 pieces. This one is pre-done. So I folded it in half and in half. And then what you've got are 4 separate sections. And what I like to do is fold it so that only one section at a time is something that I'm working on. And I do that by adding a piece of paper behind the section that I'm going to paint. So let's say I fold it like this so that you see this top right part. And in between here is where I'll put my paper, as you can see. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to color this section in. And it's only going to be colored like this in this section. I'm going to focus on using my watercolor, but you're welcome to incorporate anything else that you want. The Sharpie, the marker, crayons would be good to experiment with the watercolor. I'm going to do a little splattering on here because I like that effect. If you feel lost or you feel like you don't know what to do, you can always go back to this piece of paper, just choose one and be like, cool, in this spot, I'm going to do this and I'm going to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a bunch of water on the page where my person's face is. And then I'm going to add in a little bit of blue to it. So you get this fun swirling effect. A little bit of green in there, just because why not, you know? A little bit of yellow. And then I'm going to dab so that it isn't so wet. I'm going to use my Sharpie to go in and highlight this eye part. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it up So I can have one section of the drawing done, and then I'm going to move on to this section. And again, I'm going to fold. Your piece might need time to dry. I just like to dry mine with paper towel before I keep going, so I don't have to worry about it getting messed up along the way. But letting it dry and working on a second piece is also an option. And then I again go ahead and I put a little sheet of paper behind it so that it doesn't bleed. And then I'm going to draw this in a different way than I did my other one. So I'm going to look at my sheet. Maybe I'm going to do a little pencil and a little watercolor. I think I'm going to go ahead and do pencil for the hair because I like the effect of it. I like that it has a gradient. It can go darker to lighter. You can do that with watercolor too. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do just a solid pink, or maybe I'll do red and then I'll do some yellow. Sort of blends together. I'm going to do a little bit of blue. Cool. And again, I'm going to dab mine off a little bit. Might need another paper towel if it's getting really dirty. And then I'm going to use my red marker to highlight the eye this time because I really want the eyes to stand out. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to outline the eyeball this time for fun. Cool. And then for this person's head, I think I'm going to paint it just like a bunch of different colors. I got some green in there. I'm going to go green, blue, some more red. I'm going to go with some purple. Cool. And then again, I'm going to dab it off. So that when I open it, same drawing, completely different ways of filling it in. And then I'm going to focus on my bottom portion. For this one, I'm just going to go ahead and do both of them separately, but up to you, you can keep folding it. So I'm going to start with the letters, and I'm going to put a drop shadow on them to make them stick out, but I'm only going to do that in one section. And then I'm going to do like a black and white pattern, checker for my background. Remember, you can work in Sharpie or colored pencil or anything else too. And at any time, if you need to pause the video, if you need longer in something, just go ahead and take that time. I'm just going at my own speed right now. Cool, so I've got this checkered pattern in the background. It's not perfect. I don't really worry about it being perfect because it's watercolor and I kind of like it to have that feeling of like flow. Background's a little messy and it's fine. And then I'm going to hop in with my red and I'm going to outline my speech bubble with this red. And then that is what is going to make my letters pop out. And I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna use the marker for the nose as well. I'm gonna do a little red cheek. And then I think I'm just gonna go ahead and I'm gonna outline the face in this one just with a Sharpie to give a little bit of definition to it. And then I'm gonna do that eyeball in pencil so that the eyes continue to stick out. We'll open it and see what that looks like for now. Whoa, whoa, pretty wild, very different. And I have one section left. I'm gonna go ahead and go in with some dots, I think, and just dot this up, fill it with all the colors and patterns. Got some yellow in there. It's okay if it mixes together. It's just gonna end up looking like a cool color. And this one I really want to fill it up so that you can see the letters behind it. So I got to put in a lot of these dots so you can see the whole thing. At any time, if you need a break, go ahead and take a break and stand up and maybe walk around the room if that is okay. Or if you can all have a time while working on this to get up and walk around, because it's really helpful if you're making art with other people to be able to see what they're working on, how they approach something. Maybe you'll see something that they're doing that you never thought about trying. And that's how we learn really in art making, is our community, other people doing it, seeing things, trying things, going out of our comfort zone to try new things. And also sometimes things are unsuccessful. If you're working and you're like, man, this just isn't what I thought it would be. It's also okay to stop, to pause. I always encourage you to try and finish it, even if you don't think it's going well. Sometimes you feel differently after you finished. So you just need a little break. But as you can tell, I just did a bunch of dots around, and so it made the two letters pop out. And then I think for my background, I'm going to use some Sharpie and just do some really quick lines. Some mark making. And again, I'm sort of filling it up a lot because I have a lot of this white or negative space. But if I add in a lot, then the negative space sort of goes away while still having a lot of contrast. And then the last thing I'm going to work on is the face. I'm going to do the nose in pencil because I like the look of the pencil. I'm going to do some red lips. Hop in with a little bit of my pen. And then I'm just going to use watercolor for the face this time. And I think I'm just going to do a single color. Keep it a little put together. Some of it might bleed together. I am a-okay with that. Putting a little bit of maybe this orange as the cheeks. Blending it so it looks a little bit more like everything else. And then I got to do that eyeball. And I'm going to choose purple marker for the eyeball to finish it up. And then I'm going to dab my wet places with my paper towel. I'm going to open it up. And as you can tell, I have a complete drawing made up of 4 different drawings. And if you have time, go ahead and place them in front of you, and everybody go walk around and see what you've created. Maybe this is one that you're like, no, I don't really like how it turned out, but I really like this section. And so I want to do a drawing just like this section, but the entire thing. Then go ahead and do that. Take another step and make a full drawing of just one way of drawing. But this is really helpful if you want to learn about different ways. I also think it makes an interesting drawing because there's so many different things going on. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. And when you do your cleanup, make sure to wipe everything down. Make sure to close your watercolors, put all the lids back on your Sharpies and pens, clean out your water, clean your brushes. Thank everybody in the space. Maybe take a deep breath, breathe out, shake it out, and have a great day.